Well, welcome to Your City on Community 7 Television. I'm Veis and I'm your host. Each month we look at a different aspect of what's going on in the city of Billings. This month we're going to look at something that everyone's been dealing with here for the last couple of months, and that's downtown traffic. But we're not going to talk about all the stuff that's going on in downtown now. We're going to talk about the future of downtown traffic. Lisa Olmsted has joined us. Lisa is a public involvement manager with Dow Engineering. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
All right. Well, we're going to get into all kinds of fun traffic stuff. Everyone's looking forward to it.
All the super exciting engineering.
Yes, exactly.
No, we're not going to go there. We're going to talk about the fun stuff.
Sure. But before we do that, let's talk about you a little bit. Did you grow up in the area? Did you come to the area? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I grew up just down the road in Livingston.
Oh, okay.
And went to MSU. And we were talking before we went on the air. My husband got a job with what was then Roscoe Steel, and so that's what brought us to Billings.
Sure.
And we just found this home in Billings, and it's so great. We've been here 12 years now, and there's such a great sense of community here and such a vibrant culture, and I found myself working downtown and just loved it. So yeah, it's where we are and where we intend to stay.
All right. And before you started working at Dow, did you have some other jobs in the community?
Yeah, well, I've been at Dow for 2 years now, just a little over 2 years. And before that, lots of people know me. I was at the Western Heritage Center for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So I've been connected in with Community 7 through the cultural partners and the Spotlight on the Arts for many, many years, too.
Sure.
Probably too long, longer than I'd like to admit.
And kind of what led to your interest at Dow? Why did you decide, hey, this is something I want to try to do?
I just needed a change. I'd been there for 10 years, so it was this moment of I'm just ready for a new challenge. And so I applied for a job and they hired me. And since I've been there, my job has changed. But I found myself in the public involvement realm and getting to do fun projects like this, where you really do have an impact on the future of our communities, and I really like it. So and it's great because I get to visit with people like you, and I get to be outward facing and really engage with the public a lot, which I really, really enjoy.
Cool. Tell us a little bit about Dow Engineering. What is it? What do they do? What do they engineer? What kind of projects are you guys working on?
Yeah, well, there's some biggies, especially around here. The Billings Bypass is one of our projects. It's a civil engineering firm, and it is kind of a regional firm. So we have Pac Northwest, Mountain West, Alaska, and Arizona offices. So not a behemoth by any means, but big enough to have some really talented people and some exciting energy behind the firm.
Sure. Talk to us a little bit about, I think a civil engineering firm, a lot of us can envision what an engineer does there. What does a public relations person do at the civil engineering firm?
Well,
talk to us about what your role is.
Absolutely. It's kind of my job to be the liaison between the engineers and our clients and the public. So to present as professional and customer service oriented face to projects as possible. And there's definitely kind of a shift in the industry going more towards that as a really important piece of projects. So you'll see a lot more, and there are a lot of our clients are either municipalities or the state. The Montana Department of Transportation is a big client, and across the firm, other departments of transportation too. And whenever there's federal funding associated to projects, there's a really intentional effort to communicate effectively to the public too.
Sure.
And to involve the public too.
Yes, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about, we're going to talk about the downtown traffic study, which you guys have going on right now. Talk to us about how Dow became involved with the downtown traffic study.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the City County Planning Department issued an RFP, and so based on that RFP, we put together a plan and a proposal of how we wanted to accomplish their goals for public participation on this topic, and they picked us. So yeah,
okay,
we were lucky enough to get picked.
So what were kind of the overarching goals that the Public Works Department wanted, or well, not the Public Works, but the Planning Department wanted to accomplish with this particular project? What are their goals? What do they want to see when it's all done?
Yeah, well, taking a step back, this is kind of the second phase of the project. The engineering department actually commissioned a downtown Billings traffic study a couple years ago. Kittleson, and then Dow was actually a sub to Kittleson, did that study. And so everything that we are talking about is based on an actual traffic study. And so once that report was developed, then it kind of got passed over to the City County Planning Department, and they then issued the RFP for public participation. So basically the traffic study presented feasible alternatives based on the technical pieces of it. Traffic counts, traffic flow, signal timing, all of the safety requirements and, all of the technical engineering piece of it. They presented things that would either improve traffic flow or not necessarily have a negative impact, would just basically be feasible and up for consideration. So they posed it to the city for consideration, and then the city and city county planning want to know whether there is actually public support for some of these things. So that's what the purpose of this project is strictly public participation, collecting feedback, and then that feedback will be the foundation that will steer what actually gets implemented and the future work.
Okay. So you guys were selected as part of the RFP process. Walk us through the next steps then, I guess up to kind of where you are today. What are the things that you guys had to do to get this feasibility study or planning study done to where they get something out of it that they're going to use?
Right. Well, our whole plan was about as much like outreach to the public as possible, and then COVID happened. So we kind of are doing our best to kind of adjust and still move forward with the project. We extended our deadline just a little bit. Originally, it was going to end kind of in the July midsummer, and we pushed it back a little bit in order to make it work for the public. But yeah, we are just trying to get out in front of as many people, as many groups, doing a lot of, like press releases and direct mail to property owners throughout the entire, downtown, things like that, to really get as broad-based participation as possible, because that will be the most true representation of what the public actually wants.
Okay. Walk us through some of the alternatives that are available then for downtown traffic, or at least changes that they want to get feedback on.
Yeah. So there are 6 different pieces to it, and I guess we should probably mention the project website, which is actually a website, and then it is also the collection point for all of the survey and everything. So funnels everybody's thoughts into one singular place to actually make them, able to be communicated effectively. But so all of this information is on the project website, and it's probably easiest, it's kind of a long domain name, it's easiest to find it from the Facebook page, which is Downtown Billings Traffic Study Public Input. So search for that and you'll get directed to the website. But there are 6 different alternatives that are being proposed. One of them is the conversion of north and south streets from one-way to two-way, and it's not all of them. It is only the ones that were identified as being feasible to be changed. So some of them, it just doesn't make sense for them to be switched, and so it'll get really into the details on the website, and you'll only be asked questions relating to the ones that were proposed in the traffic study. So the north and south streets, the east and west, again, this would be second and third. The conversion from one way to two ways. Then there are some various road diets that are proposed. And what a road diet is if you imagine the metaphor of where you like suck in the belt and you kind of squeeze it in order to, add in more features. So you either eliminate lanes or you just tighten the lane widths to add some things like pedestrian features, bike lanes, parking sometimes, things like that. And so there are road diet alternatives proposed for Montana Avenue, 13th Street West, North 13th Street, and then 6th Avenue North. So with some various pieces, and in the survey, all of those sections are broken down into multiple questions based on what is feasible. Because like for example, on right there by the Met transfer station, there's that one block where things are different. The traffic flow is just different than the whole rest of the corridor. So that's kind of one example of why it would be different. Okay.
So we've kind of laid out some of the different alternatives. Let's do a little bit deeper dive into those alternatives. Give me some of the advantages and disadvantages for the north-south streets going from a one-way to a two-way.
Well, let's take one step back because there was one other alternative. And that is the seasonal closure of Broadway. So I wanted to be sure to get that in there before we move on. Sorry.
No worries.
So the north and south, the conversion of one-way to two-way, there's a lot of people that have just a lot of different opinions, different needs and different motivations. And the traffic study really did focus strictly on, like the technical engineering piece of it. So a lot of people will note, like the economic impact and that kind of, like the anecdotes. This study does not go into those issues, but I have heard a lot of different perspectives on, like look at Broadway versus some of the other one-way streets and look at how vibrant it is economically. So, so that would be one alternative. A negative when you are converting from one-way to two-way is you would lose a few parking spaces, because when you have to make the turning lane in order for there to be safe sight lines, you have to lose a couple parking spaces there. So that, of course, is worth consideration. The costs involved in all of the construction of changing things. That being said, all of these alternatives are working within the existing right-of-way, so the costs are relatively minimal. You're looking at some new streetlights, potentially some new striping and some things like that. So again, on the website there is you can really do a deep dive into all of that and really go into it. Some of the north-south conversions offer the ability to add some bike lanes too, which of course is a goal of the city. Is whenever there's construction done, is to do their best to infuse bike lanes and multimodal transportation, accessibility. So.
I did want to just go back and touch a little bit on one point that you brought up while you were talking about those different alternatives, and just highlight what we were talking about earlier when we say, the traffic study was done, and what that did was say what was feasible.
Yes.
And what you guys are trying to accomplish now is, okay, it's feasible, but should we really do it?
Yeah, what does the public want? And I think fundamentally, there have been a lot of requests coming into the city for things like this, like say the seasonal closure of Broadway, or the conversion or bike lanes. And what this project is trying to do is assess whether there is broad-based support for these things or whether it's a vocal minority. So that's, we're trying to get as wide a swath of participation as possible in order to, like I said before, get as true a representation of the true public opinion as possible.
Sure. All right, let's jump back into some of the alternatives then. Second and third, currently one way. The feasibility of turning them into two ways. Advantages, disadvantages.
Yeah, again, kind of the same way as the north-south, as it would just change the culture of downtown. You would have, a little bit maybe slower moving traffic, people being less intimidated by the one-ways. I imagine people coming in from out of town and being intimidated by the one-ways. Would it make our downtown more accessible? Perhaps. That being said, people wouldn't necessarily flow through downtown quite so quickly. But we're only talking about second and third. It's really first, second, fourth, and sixth that are the true arteries, or first, fourth, and sixth that are the real arteries that move people quickly through. So it's just as a trade-off, and really fundamentally what people want downtown to be in the future.
Sure. All right. Let's talk a little bit about road diets. The road diet on Montana Avenue. Again, maybe a little more explanation on what a road diet is, although you gave a pretty good picture of it earlier. But maybe a little more, and then advantages and disadvantages along Montana Avenue.
Yeah, so on Montana Avenue, what they would be proposing would be potentially eliminating a lane of traffic in favor of having some additional parking or some bike facilities. And again, the questions, there are a few different options too. So if you want a bike facility, do you want like a cycle track, or do you want a separated bike lane? And a lot of that language too is a little bit confusing for people. It's like, what's the difference between those things? And so on the website, there are actually, I have this here too, kind of pictures and definitions, because I didn't know what the difference is. So we're talking about, sharrows, which is where the bikes actually share the lane, and you see that just the markings on the street, or the conventional bike lane is where it just is a painted strip, or a protected bike lane, which is where there is a painted separation, or the cycle track is where there actually is almost like a separated lane just for bikes, or the cycle track, and then there's also a mixed use path, which is what people are used to over on Shiloh.
Sure, right, where it's kind of it's almost like way off on the other side of the road.
Yep, and you see pedestrians and strollers and bikes and everything all kind of sharing the space.
Whereas more of the bike lanes you're talking about here, for the most part, are what you're used to when the bike is sharing the road, but not pedestrians, right?
Right. Well, they're all of these things are kind of woven in where they would be appropriate fits within all of the alternatives. So on Montana, I guess getting back, I kind of digressed.
Yeah.
On Montana Avenue, there are some options where you could actually have a cycle track, where it actually is a separate lane for bikes to get people east and west on their bicycles, and that's another place where some people are very much in favor of it because people like bikes, and there's definitely momentum towards having more bikers in downtown, a recruitment of younger employees who like to bike. But at the same time, other people will make the case that bikes don't pay taxes and the cars pay the taxes, and we need to get cars through. So it really, it's not my job to have an opinion about it. It's just an opportunity for us to present the options for the public to weigh in.
I'm going to throw you a little curveball here, and hopefully you've heard this question come up before, so you know the answer. But if you don't, it's
no,
not
it's okay.
It's not a problem. When they were out doing the traffic study, did they do any counting of bikes as they went up and down the roads? And did that kind of contribute then to say, well, these probably are the viable options for this?
Yes. Yep, they did. And I can't tell you off the top of my head what the numbers are, but actually on the website too, that link at the very top, right next to the person on the Facebook page, is the downtown traffic study. So if people really want to get into the weeds in terms of what the traffic counts are or what the construction estimates are based on, or all of that information is all available in that document.
All right. So another alternative they looked at, which I'm assuming is probably going to be pretty similar to Montana Avenue, is 6th Avenue. Anything different about 6th Avenue than Montana Avenue that we haven't already touched on?
6th Avenue is the one place where the mixed-use path is an option. So, of course, the goal there would be to have connections for bikes and pedestrians to get from the Heights into downtown. And again, it's just there's differing opinions of whether a loss of a lane, a road diet, is worth those features or not, whether the community actually needs those features. So again, back to the public. Tell us what you want. How do you see the uses?
Sure. 13th Street also kind of similar to all of the other things we've talked about as well.
Yep. And again, if you're trying to have a connectivity for bikes and pedestrians, 6th Avenue would connect to 13th, which would then kind of feed that traffic down into the heart of downtown, the eBird and the heart of downtown. So, yes.
Okay. All right, time for another curveball. How did this fit in with kind of the existing trails program and what they're looking to accomplish there? Again, hopefully it's something you've kind of had discussions on as this project's gone on.
Yeah, so it is separate from what they're doing, though they have very strong opinions about many of the questions. So Christy has shared Christy Drake with the TrailNet, Billings TrailNet, has shared the survey with her people and her stakeholders pretty actively. So that's one of the stakeholder groups that we have reached out to.
Sure. And so did they, but I think does the city still have kind of a plan of where they want the trails to go? And does this incorporate some of the ideas that they have in that plan?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. The last, I think, alternative that they looked at was the seasonal closure of Broadway. Why is this a good idea, and why is this a bad idea?
Well, a lot of the businesses have been proponents of it for years. Even back when I was at the Western Heritage Center, I served on the Public Art Committee, and there was a lot of the conversations even then of asking for a full closure of Broadway.
Sure.
And so again, the traffic study said, yep, it would be feasible if you want to do that. The city county planning said probably more seasonal is what would be doable. So that's the way that we crafted the language in the survey. And it would just be, again, a gathering place, which is kind of ironic during COVID and all that. But yeah, it would be, like the 6th Avenue Mall in Denver or places like that. The last Better Off in Billings event, one of the keynote speakers spoke about street closure and the business perspectives on that, and at first they were very much no, don't even go there, and then they did just a mock closure, and they just did temporary and set it up with picnic tables and all that kind of thing, and it was hugely successful. That was in New York, and Billings is very different, so it's now just a matter of finding what is the right fit for us.
So would that just be on Broadway between the blocks? Could you still go east-west there? It would just, and how many blocks on Broadway would just the one?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Okay. Just the block that's right there by the brew pub.
Okay.
Doc Harper's has that temporary kind of bump out right there, and so it'd be just that single block. The east-west traffic wouldn't be impacted by it at all.
Okay. So it'd just be probably just some barricades up for the summer? Is that kind of the idea behind it?
Yeah, and so the logistics of it, the details would come down the road. You know, if there is support for it, then we would get into the steps of, you know, planning on what it would look like. But I imagine, you know, like modular pylons, you know, you can do, or like the bollards that pop up out of the street,
Right,
or
yeah.
that kind of thing
Yeah.
is kind of, in my imagination, what it would look like.
Sure.
But that's, you know, down the road.
That's down the road if you know the survey comes back pretty overwhelmingly, yes, this is something we really want to see, then those alternatives get kicked into, I'm assuming they'll get kicked back to Public Works to we're
Yeah.
going to do option A and C and Y in these particular cases.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it goes to them, and you know, it becomes a funding issue, and you know, all of the other things. You know, of course, their funding is different than, you know, Parks funding or all of that. So it's you know, it's more complicated than, you know, like, oh my gosh, our city has no money right now. It's, you know, much more complicated, as you understand as a former city council member.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is just the foundation, and we'll steer the long-term direction.
Sure.
You know, to the budget though and the funding, there is one more piece on the survey. As one scrolls down, there are actually, well, there's 3 pieces to the survey. There is the true survey, where it's like, do you want this, yes or no? Do you want the mixed youth pass, or do you want, oh look, they're scrolling down for us.
Well, look at that.
Hey, that's handy. There we go. That's it. So the first one right there is the provide feedback. That is the true survey, where it's yes, no. You know, so if you do nothing else, take the survey.
Yeah.
But then there are also these other 2 supplementary pieces. And so the provide budgetary feedback, this is imagining if, you know, and we just distilled the dollars down dramatically. So just kind of imagining, if you say you have $100 in your pocket,
Yeah.
which bucket are you going to vote in? And so do you vote for, do you put all your money in one big project, or do you separate it amongst, you know, many smaller projects? That kind of thing to help the city prioritize. So that's the second part. And then if people have other thoughts that they just don't feel are captured by the survey, there is just an ideal wall where you can just put a little comment in, and you can write your other thoughts too.
Okay. What are some of the community partners, community groups that you've partnered with on this particular project to get the word out on it?
Yeah, well, we've been working really hard to get out, like I said, to as diverse a group as possible. So we sent direct mails to all the downtown property owners. We have done press releases, so it's been picked up by many media partners, which has been spectacular. We also have been presenting in person to groups like Rotary and Exchange Club and the Montana Association of Female Executives, and you know, anybody that we can really get in front of. The Lodging Association to offer, you know, tourist perspective.
Sure.
You know, the neighborhood task forces. You know, all as many groups as we can.
Okay. If there's a group out there and they want you to come and share this information with them, just get a hold of you through the website, I'm assuming? Yeah,
through the website, or just give me a call. My direct line is 869-6329. And I'd be happy to work it into our schedule. The other thing is for anyone that doesn't do the internet, call me, and I have hard copies of the survey, and I will mail them out. You can mail them back. So we definitely want to be inclusive of anybody, and you know, if they just don't do the internet, that's okay.
I'm assuming also if folks wanted to do a virtual meeting with their group, you guys could set up something along those lines, and maybe you've done some of those and can give us some idea of how that went.
We have, yeah. In fact, when COVID hit, we had to do that. We kind of had to triage, just like everybody. I think we're all in the same boat. So, yes. In fact, we actually recorded a video of us doing the presentation that's available on the website too, with kind of the nitty-gritty, and includes a traffic engineer with me talking about, you know, a lot deeper dive into the advantages and disadvantages.
Sure.
But yeah, so we met with the Heights Task Force virtually. We met with the West End Rotary virtually, a handful of others. There is a task force of people working on the next Better Off in Billings event that we meet with virtually once a month, and they're trying to help us get engaged. I guess a couple other groups that just popped up is a special needs group that has been sharing the survey with their people, and a senior group that's been sharing the survey with their stakeholders and constituents. So yeah, there really has been great community support. It's just a matter of getting as many people to actually click on the link and take the survey as possible.
All right, very good. All right, this one's probably not going to be your favorite question, but I promise we'll have a better question.
Okay.
What has been your least favorite part of working on this particular project?
COVID? That is easy. So yeah, no, seriously, we had this plan, and I love FaceTime with people, and that's totally where, what like charges my batteries is getting to visit with people and collaborate with people, and COVID made it very challenging. And we intended to be presenting at the Better Off in Billings event, and we intended to be at the Strawberry Fest, and we intended to be tabling at the Purple 5K, and we had to totally, kind of pivot and triage, and so here we are.
All right, well, we're going to hold off on that question one more time. Anything you learned because of what you had to do for COVID that you're going to use going forward no matter what?
Yeah, totally. There's great virtual platforms that we should be using more, and in Billings, it's not such a big issue, but a lot of projects I work on are, like statewide, or I do some work in Wyoming occasionally, and a lot of Montana is rural, and so virtual platforms make a lot of sense in terms of accessibility for people. So,
right. So are you guys kind of setting that up to say, hey, what, even 5 years from now, I hope we're using this platform?
Yeah, I hope that there's some kind of dovetailing of virtual and in-person, because there's really great features of virtual. You can record the meetings and make them accessible for people whose schedules just couldn't make it doable. Sure. So, that's great in order to have extra people, come in and participate and get the information. It's wonderful to have citizens and stakeholders that are invested and that care enough to go on and watch the video about what's going on. So that's awesome, and that's a great feature of virtual platforms.
All right, so the question I promised we would get
back
to.
The fun one.
Yeah. What have you enjoyed the most about working on the project?
I love collaboration. Like I said, it's like this kind of stuff charges my batteries. And it's great to be out, and I love hearing people's perspectives, and I love, even though opinions are differing, that everybody cares so much about their community. So even if it is like no, I don't want that, that's a terrible idea, they're coming at it from a place of concern over budgets or concern over traffic, or conversely, people that want it so badly, they're coming at it again from a place of love for downtown, love for Billings. So that's really cool, and it's amazing.
All right. Where do you see this process going after you got it wrapped up? Kind of talk about what the future brings with this when the project is all done.
Yeah, so the public participation piece of it, the survey, will be open through September 15th. Okay. So that's really important for people to note. And then at that point, it'll be our job, me and my team of engineers, and we also have a landscape architect on the team. It's our job to collect all of the information and put it into a report. And so our landscape architect will also be doing renderings of the preferred alternatives that will then hopefully equip the city county planning department to communicate it into the future. And then once that report is developed, then we will be presenting the findings to the various the leadership groups. So the city council, the county commissioners, the city county planning, BPAC, groups like that.
All right. One more time before we get out of here, where can I go to take the survey? How do I find it? And what do you want me to do when I get there?
Yeah, so the easiest way to get to the link is through Facebook. And so the Facebook page is just search for Downtown Billings Traffic Study, and it'll pop up. It's this kind of blue and yellow logo. Let's see, looks like this. Or call me, and I can certainly email links, or I can email the hard copies. Again, my direct line is 869-6329. Let me double check that. Yeah, 6329. You're rattling off numbers. 869-6329.
Your office mate is going to be really mad
if
that is not the right phone number.
Right, I know. Or email me, Olmsted, OLMSTED, at Dowell, DOWL.com, and I will do anything I can to make sure that people have an opportunity to participate.
All right. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time down to come talk to us about the downtown traffic study and getting people pointed in the right direction. We really appreciate it and appreciate all you and your firm are doing to make Billings a better city.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And yeah, we are just grateful to have such great partners, great clients like the city county planning, Montana Department of Transportation, and yeah, it's our pleasure.
All right.